Exposed, how an incredible Italian Mafia queen turned humiliation into an unexpected triumph. Lucia Marconi didn't want to be the Mafia princess anymore, she just wanted to be a lawyer. Every chipped plate she'd stacked high in the Whispering Willow diner felt like another stigma added to the weight of her family's infamous legacy. With each table she'd cleared, the whispers of onlookers echoed in her mind, "Oh, she's one of them." As she wiped her brow, the polluted air of Chicago seemed to constrict against her lungs. She fought to breathe deeper, to drown out the chorus of assumptions that clung tighter than the apron around her waist. But deep inside, tangled between resentment and love, was a burning need to prove herself, a battle that felt as insurmountable as the skyscrapers that framed her life. The clattering dishes fell silent in her mind as flashes of her father's warnings bled into her thoughts. Professor Thompson often projected a hope that illuminated her darkest corners. Yet, he had cautioned her clearly: her name carried weight, and not all of it was golden. "The legacy of the Marconis may draw you in, Lucia, you don't ever forget your blood." Each syllable hung like a noose as she clenched her fists, battling the urge to embrace the past she'd attempted to quell. But that past was a stubborn shadow, always looming, demanding acknowledgement. Before she could shake off the weight of it all, a package landed on her doorstep, its yellowed papers unfurling conspiracy like a sinister call to duty. Hidden injustices painted her family not solely as criminals, but as victims tangled in a web of deceit. She sifted through the contents, her fingers trembling, a wellspring of anger flooding her veins. The barbs of her family's reputation twisted deeper, igniting more than fury, it ignited a fierce determination. This could pivot her destiny, revitalizing not just her dreams but the tarnished name that shadowed them. An unbearable tension enveloped her: remain loyal to the family and navigate through treachery, unearthing the secrets buried beneath layers of honor, or sever ties and continue the life she'd fought hard to build. It was a dilemma that felt like a jagged knife against her ribs. Shadows of her brother danced through her mind, his rebellious laugh echoing against the walls of her reality. He was now neck-deep in the Marconi legacy, his presence both a tether to the underbelly she longed to escape and a reminder of the bond she could never entirely sever. Days turned into a blur as her estranged sibling materialized, dragging Lucia back to the courtroom, a threshold she'd sworn she'd never cross. She was thrust into the ethical battleground, the dishonor of her name waiting eagerly to latch on to her like a predator dancing in the dead of night. The community buzzed with energy, eyes fixed on the uncertain outcome and a Mafia princess whose actions could rewrite their narratives, holding both honor and disgrace at bay. But the swell of anticipation that warmed her veins felt like a burn, a betrayal born out of desperation. A sudden noise in the packed gallery jolted her nerves, and her mind raced, reality twisting like the simmering coffee pots behind the counter. What if she faltered? What if she became the embodiment of everything she despised? The courtroom door swung open, eyes hardened with judgment, tense breaths hollowed out seconds like bad coffee. A flicker of hope dared to flicker within her, but would she risk the person she was becoming for the legacy that suffocated her? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. And as she stood, heart pounding with both fear and an unexpected thrill, she came face to face with the truth. The weight of the Marconi name was no longer just a burden, it was a ticking clock counting down to whether she would rise or fall beneath its shadows. Would she reclaim her family's twisted honor, or would she sacrifice it all to forge the lawyer she so desperately yearned to become? Just as her lungs filled with the promise of courage, yet another figure loomed at the doorway, shattering everything she thought she had known about family, loyalty, and her own identity. Lucia's heart raced as the figure in the doorway stepped forward, his shadow stretching across the courtroom floor like a specter of her past. It was Marco, her brother, the embodiment of the choices she wished to reject, yet felt bound to. The chatter of the audience faded into a dull hum, her focus sharpening on him, unwelcome memories rushing forward like a tidal wave. He wore his family's convictions in his eyes and the weight of their shared legacy in his movements. "Lucia," Marco said, his voice low yet filled with urgency. "You shouldn't be here." The courtroom erupted around them, voice after voice chiming in disbelief at his presence. She stood frozen, tangled between embarrassment and anger. Did he not understand the journey she was on? The fight to untangle herself from their family's grip was as much about overturning perceptions as it was about personal redemption. Did he not realize she needed to reclaim her identity in front of an audience that had labeled her before she could even speak? Why not? She challenged, riding the swell of her emotions. Why shouldn't I? I want to be more than what they say I am. Because they won't let you, Marco shot back, the conviction in his tone laced with shadows of anxiety. This isn't just a trial. It's a stage, and we're the performers. Lucia took a breath, steadying herself against the intensity of his gaze. He was right. The courtroom felt like a theater where her family's name was both script and set design, and she was supposed to juggle both loyalties. But in that moment, something shifted in her. Could she rewrite the script? She felt an unexpected surge of strength, a school of thoughts swirling in her mind. Was Marco really there out of concern for her, or was it to protect the family at the expense of her aspirations? The roles had always been clear: he was the protector, enforcing the boundaries set by their legacy, while she had been the rebel, desperate to shatter those chains. Yet here they stood, facing an unpredictable future bound by the weight of history. As the judge addressed the court with authority and the murmur settled, Lucia's eyes sharpened on the matter at hand. Trusting her instincts, she leaned into the reality before her. "I'm here to fight for justice, not for our legacy's honor. If there are injustices tied to our name, then maybe we should reveal them, not conceal them." A ripple of silence cascaded through the room. Lucid gasps followed her declaration, both horror and admiration sparking around her. This was the moment she had waited for, not merely to absolve her family, but to confront the truth head-on. And with that truth came empowerment. Yet doubt clung tightly to her resolve. The risk of igniting retribution from their family's allies loomed large behind her, whispering what awaited anyone who dared defy the script of the Marconi legacy. The stakes felt impossibly high, the unfamiliar burden of hope wrestling against fear. Marco stepped closer, determination darkening his features. "If you expose our family this way, you'll be tearing apart our last ties. You have no idea what this could unleash." In that moment, Lucia recognized the chasm widening between them. This wasn't just a trial about family secrets, it was a test of loyalty, a baptism by fire that threatened to consume her both personally and professionally. What part of the Marconi name would she choose to defend? As the verdict loomed imminent, she felt the floor of the courtroom shift beneath her with every heartbeat. The choice seemed as vast as the skyline of Chicago itself. Would she allow the fears of her past to dictate her future, or would she embrace the uncertain terrain of exposure and truth? With a deep breath, fueled by a burgeoning inner fire, she looked at Marco, now a mere specter of her past, and whispered, "I'll find my own way." As her voice echoed, the floodgates of transformation swung open, leaving her standing on the brink of a decision that could redefine not just her life, but also the very legacy she had been shackled to. Just then, another figure emerged. From the crowd, a familiar face she least expected to see, one that could unravel everything she thought she knew. The murmurs in the courtroom faded to a tense stillness as Lucia's gaze landed on the unexpected figure now stepping forward: Claire, her mentor and a fierce advocate for justice, who had played a significant role in shaping Lucia's professional identity. Her presence felt electric, a bright light cutting through the cobwebs of doubt that threatened to suffocate Lucia's spirit. "Lucia," Claire said softly, yet with a commanding presence that demanded attention. "You're ready for this, aren't you?" In that moment, the weight of reality bore down on her shoulders. Claire, the woman who believed in her potential even when she couldn't see it herself, offered reassurance amidst chaos. This was her moment to break free from the confines that had long dictated her path. The past flickered behind her like a distant storm, and while its shadow loomed large, Lucia felt a fierce determination rising within her. Yet that determination was entwined with vulnerability. "I don't know if I can take them on," she admitted, eyes darting back to Marco, who remained a stone statue of restraint. His frown was a warning, a reminder of all that was at stake: the Marconi legacy, her safety, and their fragile relationship. Claire stepped closer, her voice a soft but powerful force. "You've been groomed for this your entire life. You understand the intricacies of their world better than anyone. Use that knowledge." Lucia felt an internal shift, akin to a clenched fist slowly unclenching. Claire was right, the familiar fears that had seduced her into silence were now mere facades. Each betrayal she had witnessed, each sacrifice made at the altar of family honor, furnished her with a reservoir of truth she could wield fiercely if only she had the courage to draw it out. Steeling herself, Lucia challenged the remnants of her doubt. She would confront not just her family's legacy but also her own inner convictions. What had she learned about power through the very experiences she detested? That knowledge could be a weapon. "I have this," she whispered, determined despite herself. She could be the storm that reshaped the landscape of her life, no longer swept along by external currents. As the courtroom bore witness to her resolve, the atmosphere shifted. The murmurs began again, excitement punctuated by apprehension, as Lucia prepared to rise. Clearing her throat, she seized the reins of her narrative. "What my family has concealed is a facade, and it is high time we break it open. All these years, we've lived in a shadow. I will not let that shadow govern my life anymore." But just as her voice carried across the courtroom, a sharp, authoritative voice sliced through the chatter. "Enough of this dramatization." The judge's tone was icy, eyes narrowed at Lucia, his gavel poised for action. "This is not the place for personal revelations or defiance against familial ties." Her heart thudded painfully against her ribs. What if the judge silenced her? What would this mean for her future? Would she be branded as just another Marconi willing to play the game, forever shackled to her family's expectations? "Lucia," Marco interrupted, desperation spilling from his presence, "please reconsider. You don't know what they can do." Every instinct screamed at her to retreat, to whisper sweet nothings back to conformity. But surveying the mixed faces around her, the audience divided between endorsement and condemnation, she felt a growing sense of rebellion. She had come too far to back down now. It was time to embrace her truth and step into her power. In that instant, the courtroom felt like a crucible of change, a pivotal moment when silence was more damning than the loudest truth. She hadn't just come to confront her family but also to find her own voice amidst the chorus of expectations. As the judge prepared to silence her once more, she took a step forward, heart hammering with both fear and exhilaration. "What they do doesn't define me. I define me. And if the Marconi name has faults that need exposing, then so be it." The words hung in the air, heavy and raw, capturing the electric pulse of possibility. Behind her, Claire stood as a steadfast figure, embodying hope. But before she could draw a breath and continue, another surprising figure emerged from the back of the room, a journalist known for her probing articles on crime families, creating both fear and fascination. Lucia's heart dropped. Could this connection expose more than she ever intended? With the stakes higher than ever and the fire of anticipation crackling in the air, Lucia braced for the next step of her journey. Would she find the courage to turn her family's legacy from a shackle into a stepping stone? The atmosphere shifted dramatically, tension vibrating like an unseen string ready to snap. Lucia's eyes widened at the sight of the journalist, a woman notorious for her biting exposés and relentless pursuit of truth. This was not just an unexpected interruption, it was a reckoning. Her presence felt like a spotlight, illuminating Lucia's dark past and challenging her to rise from its ashes. As the journalist locked eyes with her, a flash of recognition passed between them. Lucia had read the articles, the intricate web of family crime detailed in painful clarity, and felt the sting of every word, stinging deeper knowing that her family had cast her into a world shrouded in secrecy and stigma. But this was not the time for hesitation. This was Lucia's moment. "Your Honor," Lucia's voice cut through the silence, steadier this time, imbued with newfound resolve. "This isn't just about my family, it's about accountability. The legacy we cling to is riddled with corruption, and it's time I shed light on the darkness." With Claire silently projecting strength behind her, Lucia felt the weight of generations pressing against her resolve. There was a flicker of something powerful within her, an inner strength that had long been overshadowed by expectations. Every breath she took filled her with the conviction that she could upend the narrative that had defined her for far too long. The judge, momentarily thrown off balance by her boldness, hesitated, but the journalist was quick to seize the opportunity. "Lucia," she interjected, deliberately choosing her words, "if you're going to take this stand, you need to prepare for the fallout. The Marconi name won't let you walk away unscathed. Are you willing to face that?" Was she? Doubt crept in instinctively, a lingering specter from her past. For every decision she had made not to follow in her family's footsteps, there were countless moments where the desire for approval had dictated her actions. But now, torn between the fear of their retaliation and the exhilaration of her truth, Lucia confronted her inner turmoil head-on. "I am willing," she replied, and the simplicity of that statement had a profound clarity. No more choices dictated by others. This was her fight, her liberation. The courtroom shifted again, the palpable tension morphing into a collective breath held in anticipation. The murmurs began anew, skepticism and support danced through the air. This was a defining moment not just for Lucia but for everyone watching, many draped in the same shadows she had known too well. The journalist stepped forward, voice commanding, then let us cut through the silence. "What hidden truths are you prepared to expose?" Lucia could feel adrenaline coursing through her veins. Each saccharine memory, the warm gatherings, the covert deals flashed before her eyes. But clarity emerged through the haze. Beneath the cordial facade lay a rotting foundation of betrayal. She owed it to herself, to those who suffered, to dismantle that facade. "Where do I start?" she breathed, and as the words escaped her lips, they surged forward like a river breaking from an icy grip. "There are lies woven into every tapestry of my family's legacy, it's time for the truth to emerge." As she spoke, a flicker of confidence bloomed within. She was drawing strength from her vulnerability, simultaneously confronting it while empowering herself. She would not just define her identity, she would reshape the narrative that had imprisoned her. Yet somewhere in the depths of her clarity, the thought curled unacknowledged. Once she stepped off this precipice, there was no going back. Every thread she unraveled could cost her the remnants of her familial ties, her safety, and even her place among the Marconis. But in that chaos lay an undeniable truth. There was no glory in silence, and every moment of hesitation was one more moment invested in the shackles of her past. The courtroom holding its collective breath became a backdrop for an undeniable revolution brewing within her. As she prepared to dive deeper, she couldn't help but wonder if she was ready to expose not only her family's sins but also the secrets of her own heart. "Then let us begin," she said, and the words trembled on the cusp of a freedom she had never known. What awaited her on the other side? Just as the courtroom atmosphere shifted to electric anticipation, the sound of a distant gavel echoed, imprinting an urgency she could not ignore. This was only the beginning. Would she find the strength to unearth and unveil buried truths, not just about others, but within herself? The room settled, eyes locked on Lucia as she waded into waters tinged with both fear and liberation. Each word she spoke became a stepping stone across the torrent of uncertainty, her voice rising with a grit that surprised even herself. Surrounding her was an audience poised on the edge of expectation, strangers, family, the unforgiving journalist, each awaiting her unraveling. "I grew up among deceit," she began, the tremor in her voice a signal that it was not just contentment she sought. "The Marconi legacy is not one of power, but of fear. There were sacrifices made, sacrifices that made heroes out of villains and criminals out of innocents. Each syllable felt like carving a path towards a promise of accountability. This was her catharsis. As she laid bare the tangled web of half-truths and outright lies, memories flooded her mind, the veiled speeches at family functions, the whispered negotiations in darkened corners. The realization struck like a hammer: she had been a willing participant in their deception, trapped under the weight of familial expectation. But not anymore. She was shedding her imposed identity, step by conscious step. Every Sunday dinner, she continued, her tone amplifying, was a theater production. The smiles, the laughter, all a grotesque facade hiding the stench of corruption. As she spoke, a simmering determination thrummed within her, transforming doubt into strength. The courage it took to confront not only her family but herself elevated her voice. "Lucia, what prompted this shift?" The journalist pressed, her demeanor shifting from skeptical to probing, eyes sparkling with the thrill of the chase. This was the confrontation Lucia hadn't anticipated: public validation of her choices, a platform for her voice. "I never truly believed I had a choice," she confessed, a crack in her bravado revealing the truth of her upbringing. "I was suffocated by my family's expectations, paralyzed by the need for approval. But today, I choose honesty. I'm choosing to free myself from their shadows." Lucia felt the lightness of self-assertion take root within her, an insistent push against the confines of her past. The court murmured, shaken by her revelation. For the first time, she acknowledged how deeply she had been conditioned to deny her own identity, the daughter of a mafia family, forever struggling against the tide of her lineage. But emotional clarity birthed fearlessness. She was done being a puppet in a play where others manipulated the strings. Then a chilling insight drove deeper than any preceding sentence. The question that loomed not just in the courtroom but in the recesses of her mind settled around her like a cloak: what if, in pursuit of truth, she lost everything? Her ties to her family, her safety, perhaps even her sense of self. The double-edged sword of exposure cut close, and yet it felt strangely liberating. With trembling resolve, she gathered her words, determined to shatter the glassy image her family had built. "This revelation isn't merely for myself, it is for all those who have suffered under the heavy blanket of silence." The gravity of her declaration hung in the air, solidifying her purpose. As the gavel struck again, defining moments cascaded around her. Did she feel fear or liberation? In this exhaustive tug-of-war, she now willingly stood in the eye of the storm she had previously fled. Faced with the potential fallout, her spirit ignited with a resolve that washed over her like a tide, intangible yet potent. "I stand ready for the truth to take its due course," she said firmly. The courtroom had become her bleeding ground, a bastion for her newfound autonomy, her truth. This was the genesis of a journey that went beyond family ties. This was the birth of Lucia defining herself, no longer defined by her last name but by her actions, her choices, and her truth. As she looked around the room, sensing the collective weight of shared histories, she felt an exhilarating rush. Where this path would lead, she didn't know, but the next steps felt undeniably inevitable. Would she emerge a conqueror of her own narrative or be consumed by the revelations she had sparked? Just as the gavel fell to silence once more, Lucia locked eyes with the journalist one last time. The question thrummed in the air: what would be the cost of this exposure, not just for her, but for those around her? The moment the gavel fell, the energy in the room shifted. Lucia could feel the tide of attention washing over her, an exhilarating and oppressive wave that pulled at her resolve like an undertow. She stood there, pulsating with vulnerability and strength, but the thrill of liberation was swiftly tempered by an internal turmoil. Could the pieces of her identity truly be rearranged? Was she ready to face whatever storm brewed in the aftermath of her bold claims? The journalist, emboldened, leaned forward, her notepad poised. "What do you think will change for you after this?" The question hung heavily, and for a fleeting instant, doubt spiked her adrenaline. The air crackled with anticipation, the thoughts of her family looming larger than life. Lucia swallowed hard, the memories of whispered conversations coming to the forefront. Each reminder of how her family had held her in a suffocating grip ignited a dormant fire deep within her. Change isn't merely a wish anymore, it's a necessity, she declared, fierceness creeping into her tone. The realization that her voice could be her weapon spun a delicate dance between fear and exhilaration, yet she understood her next steps would be pivotal. After the announcement, swirling chatter ensued around her, the journalist shaking off her surprise to follow up. Questions came from all sides, picking at the remnants of her family legacy that still clung stubbornly to her. Yet, she tuned them out, retreating momentarily into her mind. The courtroom felt claustrophobic, folding in on her with every gaze. What awaited her beyond these walls stood like a yawning chasm, ready for her to leap or draw back. Lucia. A voice suddenly broke through the murmurs, drawing her gaze. It was her brother, Raphael, his face a blend of fury and desperation. The sight of him sent her heart racing, igniting an instinct to retreat, but she held her ground. Did you really think that revealing the truth would bring freedom? He shouted, voice rising. You're tearing us apart. In that moment, the cacophony faded, and Lucia's pulse quickened, igniting her latent fighting spirit. No, Raphael. I'm piecing us back together. This facade of loyalty bred only betrayal, she countered, her voice steady despite the tumult within her. She saw the flicker of uncertainty cross his face, perhaps, buried underneath his rage, there existed a spark of understanding. But he shook his head, fists clenched at his sides. You don't know what you're doing. You're inviting enemies into our lives. Into your life. It hit her hard. What lay ahead was not just a path of self-exploration, but one littered with danger. She pressed her lips together, weighing the shadows of fear against the freedom she craved. Her family had survived beneath layers of secrecy for too long, but she was tired of living in that darkness. I'd rather face the world as myself than drown under your shadows, she found herself saying, the words both a plea and a challenge. The conviction surprised her, but she knew the truth of it ran deeper than familial bonds. The allure of deceit no longer held her captive, instead, it had become her touchstone for authenticity. Raphael opened his mouth, but no words came. His frustration morphed into something softer, pain, perhaps. In that moment, she realized she was also standing on the precipice of his evolution, a catalyst for change. As the tension thickened, their gazes locked, each holding on to their divergent paths. Would they find a way to merge their realities, or would the cracks deepen, leading to a fracture that could not be mended? Just then, a commotion erupted outside the courtroom doors. Footsteps thundered closer, piercing through the tension like the crack of thunder. Lucia's heart raced, anticipation surging in tandem with her fear. Questions burned in her ribcage. Could this be the reckoning she both feared and sought? In that charged moment, she felt the ground shift beneath her. An imminent decision loomed. The world outside her carefully constructed facade was demanding entry, and this time, there was no evading its reckoning. What emerged beyond those doors would redefine not only her future but also would reveal the truths hidden within the familial relationships she had thought were unbreakable. Would she find allies in the unlikeliest of places, or would betrayal come from those she had trusted most? The shadows of her past no longer felt like a sanctuary, they felt like a trap. The doors swung open with a sudden crash, and the tumult echoed in the courtroom as figures poured in, their uniforms stark against the drab surroundings. Lucia's instincts kicked in, she felt a rush of adrenaline, her training in crisis management surfacing at the most unexpected moments. The commanding presence of law enforcement filled the space, a reminder of how reality often collided with personal narratives. Lucia Carrasco. A voice boomed, cutting through the disarray. The officer's eyes were sharp, scanning the crowd until they landed on her. A wave of uncertainty washed over her. Was this a summons, or something darker? Yes, she replied, her voice steadier than she felt. Despite the trepidation churning in her stomach, she refused to shrink. This was not just about her anymore, it was about standing steadfast in her convictions. Please step forward. The officer gestured, and a knot formed in Lucia's throat as she approached, acutely aware of the scrutinizing eyes that followed her. The air was thick with murmurs and anticipation. As she moved closer, she caught Raphael's gaze, and for a brief moment, the connection felt palpable, like the invisible threads of shared history intertwined with hope. The uncertainty flickering in his eyes reinforced her belief that her actions had opened a chasm that might one day lead to understanding. "Are you aware of the recent allegations involving your family?" the officer asked, a sternness to his demeanor. The notion that her family's legacy was now on the precipice of public unraveling pressed down on her chest. "I am," she said, squared her shoulders, and met his gaze. The weight of history bore down on her, but she understood that there was no turning back now. "I am willing to cooperate." The officer nodded, but the fractured view of her family loomed larger than the courtroom walls. Each confession she had made now felt responsively layered with consequence. Her hunger for an authentic self intertwined with the exposure of dark family secrets painted a complex picture of liberation tinged with guilt. As the officer began to speak, an inner voice urged her to rise above her fear. She imagined herself unraveling every hidden truth while standing tall amidst the storm. It was an empowering conviction, and just as she felt the stirrings of her courage, she remembered the last message she had received from their family lawyer: "Your actions have consequences. Think carefully." But the truth had a way of piercing through pretense. Did she truly want to revert? Despite the danger, her pulse thrummed with exhilaration. The idea of casting light in the shadows she had long traversed fueled her determination. "Bring it on," she muttered under her breath, but the officer caught her words. There was a flicker of recognition, perhaps respect in his eyes. "This isn't just about you anymore. It's about your entire family," he cautioned, but her mind whirled with possibilities. She saw it. Her family history shoehorned into her narrative could finally reshape them, every betrayal, every alliance reinvented. "I know," she replied, taking a deep breath, her resolve clarifying. This was grander than her solitary battle, it could become their shared awakening. If she could navigate this turbulent sea, perhaps Raphael and the rest could too. As the officer issued a series of instructions, Lucia found herself drawn to her brother in the spectators' gallery. He looked torn, the remnants of anger still etched on his brow. Until now, she had viewed their relationship through the lens of conflict. But the truth was, they were both emerging from the same shadows. His reluctance mirrored her fears. The officer's voice faded into the background as her thoughts spiraled into strategy. Would she be able to reach out to Raphael amidst the fracture that threatened to break them further apart? The growing sense of both connection and division sparked an idea: what if their confrontation could be redirected into mutual strength, rather than dismantlement? With each passing minute, the reality of her family's legacy shifted. Was it possible for their redefined identities to galvanize a new chapter rather than incite destruction? In that critical moment, the world outside the courtroom echoed anew. "Lucia," Raphael called softly, and she turned, her heart pounding, ready to continue this perilous dance of truth and consequence, but also one of profound potential. How far was she willing to go to forge alliances from ashes? Would she risk everything to prove their bonds could transcend the betrayal? The echoes of footsteps and murmurs outside dictated that change was imminent, but how would she harness it? Lucia's heart raced as she moved through the crowd, her thoughts swirling like the tension in the air. The potential for reconciliation with Raphael loomed over her, complex yet tantalizing. She could almost taste the possibility of healing the deep rift that had shaped their lives for so long. But how? The breakdown of their family was both her fear and her battle. "Lucia," Raphael called again, this time more insistent, and she felt the tether of their shared past yanking her closer. His voice was like a steady drumbeat, drawing her away from the chaos and into a moment that felt wholly theirs. Stealing a deep breath, she stepped toward him. "Raphael, we need to talk," she said, her voice unwavering, despite the questions spiraling in her mind. Every inch closer felt electric, laden with urgency and past grievances unspoken. "What do you want me to say?" he replied, his expression tight, as if he feared whatever came next would tear them apart once and for all. "Do you think mere words can fix this?" "It starts with words," Raphael, she pressed, frustration creeping into her tone. We can't move forward if we keep avoiding the truth. I know it's hard, but staying silent isn't helping. He exhaled sharply, glancing away, wrestling with a storm of emotions. The room quieted around them, but the heaviness of their shared legacy hung between them. Was it really so impossible to find common ground amidst the turmoil? Have you ever stopped to think about what these secrets have cost us? He shot back, the anguish evident in his voice. The accusations, they're consuming everything. Tell me, how do you plan to untangle that? What do you know that I don't? Her mind raced. He was right. The weight of their ancestry was suffocating, and every moment spent in disarray felt like another strand tightening around their necks. But with that realization came a spark of determination. She was here now, and she was ready to ignite change. I plan to confront the truth, she replied adamantly. Not just for me, but for us. I want us to be more than our history. I want to redefine what family means. Together. The flicker of uncertainty in Raphael's eyes urged her on. I've been cowardly, holding back, afraid to face the storm. But I can't let our family's shadows dictate our paths any longer. We owe it to ourselves to rewrite our story. As she spoke, a sudden thought crystallized a plan. Could they face their family secrets together, as allies? It might shatter the chains of blame and anger that had bound them for years. You've always had my back, Raphael, she said softly, feeling the pull of kinship lacing her words. I need you now. Let us unearth the truth together. We can share the burden. His hesitation was palpable, but Lucia saw the flicker of something, hope. What if it shatters everything we thought we knew? Then we'll rebuild, she asserted. We've built walls long enough. This is our chance to create something new if we dare to stand in the light. The tension around them shifted as he processed her resolve. They were teetering on the edge of a pivotal moment, standing before a crossroads that had appeared insurmountable only moments before. Was there strength enough to confront this looming legacy? As the officer prepared to conclude his instructions, pulling her back to the present, Lucia couldn't shake the raw potential of their impending alliance. Are you with me? Raphael met her gaze, searching for the conviction he knew all too well. The courtroom, once a battleground of the past, could transform into the cradle of their rebirth. How far are we willing to go? As Lucia held her breath, waiting for his answer, the echoes of distant footsteps grew heavier, as if they were bringing the weight of their family behind them, urging them forward into this uncharted territory of truth and vulnerability. Would they grasp the opportunity for unity, or would fear rip them apart one final time? The moment hung like a pendulum, threatening to sway either way. As the tension peaked, Lucia watched Raphael, the silence stretching into a palpable wave that threatened to overwhelm them. This was not merely about words or familial secrets, it felt like an awakening. As he searched her eyes, she sensed the battle within him, a struggle that mirrored her own. How could they turn this moment into a turning point? Lucia, he finally said, resolve mingling with uncertainty, I don't want to lose you again. I can't. His vulnerability was a lifeline in her chaotic thoughts. Encouraged by his admission, she stepped closer, feeling a shift in the atmosphere. I understand fear, Raphael. I've been swallowed by it. But staying in this limbo is worse. The truth may hurt, but hiding it will only fester, she replied, each word sharpening her own self-awareness. Resolute, she grasped the path ahead, her mind mapping out what lay before them. They needed a strategy, not a single confrontation but a series of confrontations. She envisioned each secret they would unravel, illuminating the shadows of their past. Let us approach this logically. We can outline everything we know, and from there, we can decide what to confront first. Raphael nodded slowly, the tension in his shoulder easing fractionally. I'm afraid, though, what if the truth is worse than we think? What if it destroys all hope? Or what if it frees us? She pursued this line of reasoning, her determination growing. If we face the worst together, we can handle anything. It's an opportunity for growth, Raphael. It's about more than just our family, it's about us, our journey forward. As she spoke, she felt something shift within her, like a door swinging wide open. She was stepping into the unknown with a new sense of purpose. They could redefine their relationship, no longer mere remnants of what once was but collaborators in rekindling their shared legacy. Let us start with the basic questions, she suggested. What are the secrets we need to uncover? Who are the key players involved? The idea of a tactical approach fueled her energy, transforming uncertainty into strategy. Raphael shifted, the uncertainty in his eyes replaced with a flicker of clarity. There are whispers, the names of family members who've stepped too far into the gray. They've hidden things from us. Then let us pull them into the light. We can confront each one, find out what they're holding on to. They began to jot down names and events, their shared moment evolving into an unexpected planning session. The act of writing felt liberating, each stroke of the pen a step away from their burdens. As they filled pages with details, their spirits lifted, the shadows of fear began to recede. Lucia, if we succeed in this, if we're able to uncover the truth, how do we ensure we're equipped to handle the fallout? Raphael's question hung heavy in the air. By learning to trust ourselves, she replied, meeting his gaze with intensity. By learning to trust each other. We've faced the darkness before, but together we can navigate the storm. A newfound alliance was forming, one laced not only with the potential for mutual understanding but equipped to endure the fire of truth. As the atmosphere around them shifted, Lucia realized they were no longer at the mercy of their fears. They were active architects of their fate. Yet even as her heart soared, a cold wave of realization tinged her excitement. What if there were repercussions they weren't prepared to face? Each revelation could pit them against their loved ones, igniting long-held resentments. Raphael, she spoke softly, we must be prepared for retaliation. Not everyone will welcome the truth gracefully. His expression tightened. Then we brace for what comes next. The echoes of their past weighed heavily, but for the first time, it felt permissible, almost exhilarating to confront them. They stood on the brink of discovery, a boundary that promised upheaval but also the potential for newfound strength. The words etched across the pages of their plan felt like incantations, ushering in an uncertain future, both terrifying and liberating. Yet, as they crafted their strategy, an unsettling thought crept into Lucia's mind. What if another family member sided with the shadows, intent on preserving their dark legacy? Raphael, we need to anticipate betrayal. Uncertainty fused with determination, propelling them toward their next step into the abyss. Would they emerge as victors, or would the revelations plunge them deeper into chaos? The call for courage echoed, and as they steeled themselves to face the truth, the stakes skyrocketed. What awaited them was cloaked in ambiguity, a harbinger of danger perhaps, but an opportunity nonetheless. I think the first name we need to write down is. The silence reverberated, potent with possibility, as Lucia took a deep breath, ready to pierce the heart of their family's darkest secrets. With steely resolve, Lucia stood at the threshold of her family's reckoning, each word they had meticulously crafted paving the way for an inevitable confrontation. She and Raphael had transformed their shared anger into a strategic map. It unfurled like an atlas of their family's buried secrets, a roadmap toward the ghosts of their past. What was initially a descent into chaos had spiraled into a tangible plan, one that illuminated a path toward liberation. As they approached the first name on their list, Uncle Domenico, Lucia felt the familiar rush of anxiety, yet it was flavored with a newfound courage. She glanced at Raphael, who steadied his gaze on her as if to draw strength from her presence. The culmination of their effort melded into a unified purpose that they were finally prepared to face together. Let us set a meeting, she said, her voice steady, and confront him with all that we know. This would not merely be a conversation, it would be a pivotal clash, a declaration that they were no longer pawns in their family's game of shadows. Raphael nodded, the tightness that once gripped his jaw beginning to dissolve. You really think he'll cooperate? Cooperate? No. But it's time to explain how we've broken free of their silent shackles. With each passing moment, her foundation became solider. She was no longer wrestling with guilt or external expectation. Stripped of the weight of her identity, she was a potent force weaving her destiny. Days later, the air grew thick with tension as they approached their uncle's front door. The grandeur of the Marconi residence loomed large, an embodiment of false prestige, encasing the lies they had long endured. As they took a deep breath, Lucia felt that this might become the crucible, a transformative moment that could redefine their existence. Her heart raced, fear pulsing alongside determination. She was acutely aware that confronting Domenico would not merely unearth secrets but could reshape not only their legacy but their very identities. They would no longer be the Marconi kin tarnished by disappointment, they would craft their narrative anew. "Ready?" Raphael asked, his voice firm. This was it. "Always," Lucia affirmed, determination dripping from each syllable. When they stepped inside, a sense of finality permeated the atmosphere. Domenico sat in the opulent room, his demeanor the epitome of arrogance. The confrontation felt like stepping into a lioness' den, yet as they took their seats, the walls transformed into a platform. They were about to execute a carefully planned counteroffensive against years of deception. "Domenico," Lucia began, her voice echoing with a newfound authority. "We need to discuss our family and the truths that have long been hidden from us." He raised an eyebrow, dictating the tone of the exchange. "Truth? In our family, truth is malleable, dear Lucia. You know that better than anyone." The tension in Raphael's posture stiffened, but Lucia pressed on, refusing to yield to the encasing shadows. "The time for manipulation is over. Today, we seek justice. Fairness. An understanding of who we truly are without the illusions of familial loyalty burdening our judgment." "Familial loyalty?" Domenico chuckled with scorn. "It seems you've been blinded by the desire to rewrite history. Are you really ready to face the consequences?" "Consequences?" she repeated, determination gushing through her veins. "You taught us to fear them. But today, we choose to embrace them. We refuse to be paralyzed any longer." Raphael interjected, his voice steady. "Lucia is right. We seek the accountability that this family has never endorsed. Hiding in the shadows is no longer an option." As their words filled the room, Domenico's expression darkened, revealing the cracks in his facade. They had pierced through the veil, and in that moment, Lucia sensed a shift not only within herself but within the very fabric of their family dynamic. This was a reckoning, and for the first time in a long while, fear was overshadowed by clarity and empowerment. "Domenico," she continued, "your legacy is not set in stone. We want transparency. We want justice not just for us, but for those affected by these lies. The time has come to expose everything hidden within this family's history. No more manipulation, no more silence." As the tension thickened, Lucia felt the boundaries of her past crumble. What started as a hesitant confrontation transformed into a powerful chorus demanding accountability, justice, and departure from the shackles of their history. She was no longer alone, she stood fortified by the connection to her brother, and in that shared resolve, they summoned the strength to weather the storm ahead. Domenico's expression shifted from arrogance to panic, fear flickering in his eyes as he processed the repercussions. The very foundations of their family were being redefined. Lucia steadied her breath, aware of the potential consequences of their dialogue. "Today marks a shift. We will no longer follow the paths our ancestors drew. We are the architects of our future. You can choose to join us or resist." For once, silence lingered in the room, heavy with the weight of possibilities. The initial anticipation of fear transformed into the exhilaration of empowerment. They were claiming their narrative. They were shaping the truth together, two siblings casting aside the shadows of their lineage to reach for the light of liberation. "Out of chaos can come clarity," Lucia said, a mantra mellifluously rolling off her tongue, each word grounding her even further. "And with clarity, change. We will not allow fear to dictate our path anymore. The weight of her conviction reverberated around them, the power of her message penetrating Domenico's carefully constructed barriers. In that moment, she recognized the essence of her growth. It stemmed from the choice to use her voice as a weapon against her family's dishonor. The initial confrontation had morphed into something far grander, stepping into the abyss of exposure together. This moment became both a definition and genesis, a testament that they were no longer mere puppets in their family drama, they were the stars of their own narrative, ready to reclaim their destinies. And as they emerged from the confines of their past, stronger as a byproduct, Lucia felt solid confidence emanating from within, a feeling of genuine, sustainable achievement. She had not only grown as a professional but as a person rooted in truth. This was her moment of transformation, a hard-won victory destined to forge the path for all that would come next. Now, more than ever, it was vitally important to celebrate this newfound liberation. This is the moment to embrace your journey, to conquer your legacy, just as Lucia has done. Subscribe immediately to our channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now, your support fuels our mission to bring forth powerful narratives of triumph. Comment below with your reactions and thoughts about Lucia's journey. What can you take from her story? And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Let us push the limits of personal growth together.